we have been waiting for this day. We thank God for such a wonderful day. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guest speaker, guests of honor, members of the Board of Governors, respected elders, invited guests, my esteemed old students, PTA chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it is with profound joy, a deep gratitude, and today marks a truly historic and significant milestone in the life of this great institution. Today marks 80 years of excellence, brilliance, discipline, and service to our dear nation. South African High School has stood as a beacon of quality secondary education, shaping generations of responsible citizens, professional leaders, and change makers who continue to make both locally and internationally. This anniversary is not merely a celebration of years. It is a celebration of impact. It's a moment of honor. Our founders whose institution. It is also an opportunity to cherish alumni and the determination of our students who continue to uphold the values and tradition of this noble institution. The anniversary lecture offers us the platform to reflect on our journey, assess our present state and strategic world. We are reminded of our responsibility to adapt, innovate, and maintain a high its treasured documentation and milestone only as a chronicle to the anniversary planning committee, our sponsors, all students, and all stakeholders whose support and commitment have made this celebration possible. As we commemorate the 80 years journey, may we renew be even greater and marked by innovation, unity, and excellence. I once again welcome the school. May God bless us all. Bachue, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, our able headmaster. I wish I was a student at this time, going back to WASS to be a student at the year. Of course, I enjoyed my time between 2000 and 2002. Thank you again, Mr. Isaac Nyako Arthur. We'll take the next speech from the board chair of WASS, Mr. Ni Stand, as we welcome our special of honor, the Gamanche, His Royal Majesty, King Taki Tekochuru II. Please, with a big round of applause as he comes in. We'll be unveiling today. Please, just a few minutes, he'll be in. As we wait for him to come, His Royal Majesty Dr. Kentaki Tekochuru II, as we all know, is the revered traditional ruler and cultural person, stood as Gamanche on the 9th of May 2022 after his selection by the kingmakers of the Ga traditional area. This is just to give you an idea who he is. We'll get to know more about him during the course of the program. He's also a strong advocate for education. One of the reasons we invited him to be our guest speaker for this event. Yes. Reverend, thanks for seconding that. As we wait for the Gamanche, I'd also like to mention that this program, this very important event, is being broadcast live on Ghana Television. So Ghana Television, we thank you so much for doing this for us. A big round of applause, Ghana Television. When the Gamanche comes in and takes his seat, the next voice we'll hear will be that of Ni Adekoye Mofat, the board chair of WASS. He'll be giving us the anniversary message. And then if Professor Jampo is here at the time, he would also talk to us about WASS, how we started, where we are now, and where we want to get to. Welcome. His Royal Majesty King Takiteko II, the Gamanche, and his entourage. Beautifully adorned in traditional attire. Thank you so much for gracing the occasion. Thank you. A big round of applause as the Gamanche walks in. Your Royal Majesty, we are happy to have you. Please keep clapping as he takes his seat. Like I mentioned earlier, I said that after the Gamanche takes his seat, the next voice we're going to hear was that of Ni Adekoye Mofat, the board chair of West Africa Senior High School. I'm told to call it West Africa Secondary School, but I'm just used to the senior high school, so forgive me. Now, the board chair of WASS, that's Ni Adekoye Mofat, is a 1973 alumnus of WASS. He's a Ghanaian media practitioner, an actor, a theater director, and communications consultant. He has excelled in theater, media, and public relations, serving as CEO of Ling Artistics and Communication Service and board chair, like I mentioned, of WASS, while contributing significantly to Ghana's arts, media, and education sectors. Our next speaker, the board chair of WASS. Thank you.
His Royal Majesty Ni Takiteko II, Meme Mame, all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate 80 years of excellence, resilience, community engagement of WASS. Since our founding, we have stood as a beacon of knowledge, discipline, and innovation, shaping generations of leaders who continue to make an impact across Ghana and beyond. This milestone is not only a reflection of our rich history, but a promise to the future. Together, we honor the sacrifices of those who built this institution and embrace the opportunities ahead with renewed vision and determination. Happy 80th anniversary to the WASS family, past and present. From now on, our future projects and vision will include digital transformation, that is, smart classrooms with interactive technology, expansion of e-learning platforms for more collaboration among our students and other educational institutions. Infrastructure development, including modern science and innovation labs. Upgraded sports facilities to nurture talent. We have plans to develop our sporting infrastructure by constructing a state-of-the-art sporting facility in the school. We have therefore had discussions with the country's foremost sports construction company, Wembley Sports Construction Limited, to undertake preliminary surveys and assessments in this regard. They have since provided us with details, design drawings for the proposed project. We recently observed in the news His Excellency the President cutting the sword for the construction of a modern sports facility in Ganasco, Tamale. Follow the progress of that project with keen interest and are pleased to observe that work is advancing steadily. We do hope that we will be supported to have ours as soon as possible. Such a facility will be of immense benefit not only to WASS, but also to schools within the entire catchment area, including primary, junior, and senior secondary schools, as well as institutions and the wider community. Above all, we are working towards having full-fledged boys' dormitories to complement what has been started by the old students, WASSOSA and the PTA. We shall encourage more community impact, such as outreach programs among neighboring schools to ensure positive networking among students and the wider public. Pursue sustainable projects such as solar energy, green campus initiatives, and so on. We look forward for a brighter future for our students, teachers, and our neighboring communities. Long live WASS. Long live Ghana. Botuye. 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 Thank you.
Mr. Nia Adekoya-Mofa, thank you so much. A big round of applause. We can do better than that for him. Before we hear from our next speaker for this event, I'd like to ask the WASS Choir, or the Galaxy Band. I got it right? The Galaxy Band. Can we do that now, please? Thank you very much, Galaxy Band. We can do it better for them. A big round of applause. Iradiye Ampa. Isn't God good? Yeah. Of course, apart from celebrating 80 years of educational excellence, one of the reasons why we're here is to launch a very important book, which you'll get to know very soon. And of course, I'll be taking money from a lot of you, so they can do a lot of the developmental projects our headmaster is asking us to do at WASS. But before we do that, we'd like to take a lecture from Professor Clement Sumwa. Of course, WASS, we have a legacy from our days at Lagos town, where we used to be called Wasoba, to Adenta, Wasosa. Yes, we've come a long way, and we don't sing our praises enough. We hear the Presbyterian boys, Presec, and other schools at disco. We don't sing our praises enough, and it's important that we remember where we've come from and where we are now. So Professor Clement Sumwa will be giving us a brief lecture on remembering our legacies for nation building. But who is he? He's a 1966 alumnus of West Africa Senior High School. From 1973, we moved to 1966. He's a distinguished academic, engineer, consultant, and higher education leader with extensive international experience in engineering, information research, and university. He entered engineering from the Commemorative and Technology, Ghana, in 1972, graduating, and I emphasize on this one, graduating with first-class honors, the first person to achieve this distinction in electrical engineering at that university, and was adjudged the overall best student in the Faculty of Engineering. That's not all. He subsequently pursued the postgraduate studies at the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the United States of America, where he obtained his master's degree in 1975 and doctorate degree in 1979 in electrical engineering. Where was I? My program of giving birth to. Following his doctoral studies, Professor Sumwa worked with General Electric Company in the United States in advanced engineering research and development. He later served as Associate Professor of Electrical Engineering at the University of Petroleum and Minerals, now King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, Saudi Arabia, contributing to teaching, research, and academic program development. That's quite an achievement. He deserves a big round of applause again. So help me welcome now on stage to give us our lecture for today, Professor Clement Sumwa. Please let's appreciate him.
Okay. Great. Mr. Chairman,
sorry for the delay. Mr. Chairman, His Royal Majesty the Gamanche, esteemed royals and distinguished guests gathered here, the headmaster of WASS, heads of other secondary schools, students, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, today marks a special occasion, a time to remember the legacy of a school founded 80 years ago. A school that has endured many difficulties and yet has produced alumni who have contributed significantly to Ghana, to Africa, and to the flourishing of humanity. I do not intend to intimidate anyone, but my classmates and I, who graduated from this school in 1966, look back on our time there with immense pride and gratitude to God, the co-founders, and the pioneering teaching and non-teaching staff. Our school in its early days was virtually fenceless, situated in close proximity to the vibrant of. By the standards of Plato's ideal school for philosopher kings, one might have expected a school like ours to be isolated from its community, shielded from outside influences, yet it was exactly the opposite. Those early years required the founders to navigate the complex question of collective ownership versus individual ownership. That tension eventually contributed to the government takeover of the school in 1954. More than the political transition, the period also reflected ideological ferment, where socialist principles and a cosmopolitan worldview collided. WASS faced identity challenges and changed locations multiple times before settling finally in Adenta in 1987. Established for those not privileged by wealth, the school battled cash flow problems that sometimes affected economic performance. Yet, despite these constraints, WASS produced some of the finest individuals. Ghana has seen a testament to its resilience and to the enduring philosophical underpinnings that survived the turbulence. From a personal perspective, our proximity to the surrounding community shaped us profoundly. It fueled our resolve, drive, and determination to transcend distractions and excel. It also required that we cultivate social skills, an essential part of living well with others and building a harmonious relationship. This dual cultivation of cognitive and social skills prepared many of us and generations after us to contribute meaningfully to nation building. I express my sincere gratitude to the organizers of WASS at 80 for selecting me among many distinguished alumni to deliver this lecture. I also pay tribute to the co-founders of the school, their families, the pioneer heads, the teaching and non-teaching staff, and the current staff who have sustained WASS legacy for all of us to remember today. My lecture today draws on symbolic lessons embedded in WASS that we can apply to building contemporary Ghana. WASS, established before modern Ghana itself, holds lessons about values, social formation, pluralism, and the ethics of living with strangers, drawing from the adage, Titi Wobichre, the imagined past offers valuable lessons. I argue that WASS has much to teach Ghana today. However, my comparison between WASS and Ghana is not meant to conflate the two. WASS is a microcosm. Ghana is far larger in scope, and the challenges it faces are more complex, yet both are united by a profound philosophical question: why should I love someone who is not like me? This question is at the core of human interaction, especially in public life where strangers gather. Many of Ghana's complex challenges, illegal mining, partisan politics, corruption, and social fragmentation, are at the core manifestations of marginalization. The inability to answer that question ethically and meaningfully creates the condition for mistrust, exclusion, and national underperformance. In this lecture, I will argue that the foundation of nation building, whether in a school or in a country, lies in enduring values such as respect, honesty, diligence, hard work, and the fear of God. These values cannot be found in technical resources alone. They are axioms of life, transmitted through socialization, modeling, and institutional culture. It is on these values that WASS is being remembered today. Structure of my lecture. For clarity, I have organized the lecture into two interrelated parts. In part A, I place WASS in a historical context, showing how its founding in the 1940s was tied to the nationalistic politics, colonial legacies, and the cosmopolitan character of Accra. In part B, I explore the symbolic resources through which WASS was socialized, students and teachers, into a shared ethos and mission. I conclude with lessons for contemporary Ghana and for the future of secondary education. In preparing this lecture, I have drawn extensively from the school's history book that will soon be launched. I encourage all of us to take a copy of that scholarly resource as we live today, for it preserves invaluable institutional memory and national history. First, looking at placing WASS in historical context. Mr. Chairman, in this session, my aim is to demonstrate how the history of West Africa Secondary School is deeply intertwined with the colonial history of the Gold Coast and Accra. Remembering WASS requires us to appreciate the historic sagacity needed to navigate pluralities and loyalties in building a nation. The core question here is, how did the colonial context of the Gold Coast shape the establishment of West Africa Secondary School? Answering this question will help highlight the importance of symbolic resources in the process of nation building. Colonial rule left two enduring legacies that complicated post-colonial governance. First, the concentration of resources and authority in the colonial state ultimately benefited the metropole more than the colony. Second, the weakening of indigenous political structures, which had traditionally embodied transparency, accountability, and political structures, which had traditionally embodied transparency, accountability, and probity. These disruptions placed the post-colonial state on a fragile foundations and created incentives for rent-seeking and factional competition. By the 1940s, Gold Coast nationalism had become deeply informed by the shared experience of oppression under colonial rule. The binary of oppressor, the colonial administrator, and the oppressed, the Gold Coaster, became central to the nationalist narrative. While this dichotomy helped shape the early national identity, it also posed a challenge for holding the post-colonial state together. The key question was, how can we prevent the nation from falling into the trap of re-tribalization after the colonial oppressors have left? Establishments of West Africa College. West Africa Secondary School originally was known as West Africa College. It was established on January 20th, 1946, in the post-World War II era. This was a critical period in Gold Coast nationalism, as the self-determination project of earlier pioneers began to crystallize into mass politics. With the prospect of a post-colonial state on the horizon, the stakes were high. Educational institutions were needed not only to provide skills, but also to supply the philosophical foundation for a new generation of citizens who will think differently from colonial subjects. The urgency was paramount. Citizens needed to be socialized to identify as Ghanaians and not succumb to the ethnic divisions that had been reinforced under colonial rule. The colonial administrators succeeded in uniting various ethnic groups to form a colony of the Gold Coast, laying the groundwork for a future modern state. However, this unity was built on fragile foundations with major fault lines that will later pose significant challenges to post-colonial governance. By the late 19th century, Accra was becoming increasingly cosmopolitan. By the 1830s, returning Africans from Brazil, known as the Tabom, had begun settling in the city. These returnees were integrated into the Ghana society through the social philosophy of Ablekuma. Yet, compared to Cape Coast, Accra still lacked enough secondary schools. Additionally, because the Gold Coast was closely tied to Sierra Leone, there was considerable interaction between Gold Coasters and Sierra Leoneans. Many Gold Coasters traveled to Fura Bay College in Sierra Leone for higher education, and several educated Sierra Leoneans moved to Accra to establish schools such as Accra High School in the 1920s, which preceded West Africa College. Yet, despite Accra's growth into the heart of economic and political activity, secondary education opportunities lagged behind. Many robust mission schools were located outside Accra, while Cape Coast, long a center of colonial administration, had a stronger concentration of educational facilities. It was not until Governor Gogisber's era in the 1920s that Achimota emerged as a pioneering second cycle institution, but the overall demand in Accra remained unmet. Two key historical events played a role in shaping Accra's development during this period. First, the outbreak of the bubonic plague in the early 1900s prompted the colonial administration to push for the expansion of the city. New areas like Adabraka and Tudu were established as part of the effort to decongest Gamashi. Second, during the World Wars, the British needed to recruit soldiers for the West African Frontier Force, and Tudu became a major recruiting center. The British established camps in the area to facilitate the recruitment process. Within this concept of urban migration, socio-economic hardship, and nationalist aspiration, two young men from Peki Avatile and Peki Blengo, Reverend Joseph Carlton Tete and Mr. Emmanuel Addo, relocated to Accra. Reverend Joseph Carlton Tete and Mr. Emmanuel, Reverend Tete had comparatively higher education, whilst Mr. Addo's financial stability and business experience helped make the establishment of the school possible. The early school emphasized commerce and secretarial skills, responding to immediate employment demands. The name West Africa College was not accidental. It reflected a broader Pan-African vision at a time when Accra was emerging as a hub for continental and transcontinental Pan-Africanism. Naming the school West Africa signaled an educational project aimed at uniting people of African descent and nurturing a post-colonial imagination that exceeded narrow localism. In 1951, when Kwame Nkrumah became leader of the government business, a major national challenge was the shortage of Africans in higher ranks of the civil service. This deficit fed into the Africanization agenda, supported by the 10-year Accelerated Development Plan between the years 1951 and 1961. Although WASS predated these reforms, Nkrumah recognized the need to expand secondary education to build administrative, technical, and civic capacity. Why symbolism matters? Mr. Chairman, the goal here is not to restate the full institutional history already captured in the school's history book. Rather, it is to reflect on how a seemingly fenceless school could survive Ghana's tumultuous history and still produce numerous illustrious alumni, shaping the frontiers of human flourishing. What lessons can Ghana draw from the creative strategies adopted by the co-founders, the pioneer staff, and the students? Just like colonial Ghana, the co-founders of WASS had to explore creative ways to align the loyalties of students from across the colony and West Africa with the school's vision. Secondly, just as post-colonial Ghana had to ensure that its citizens remained focused on building the nation despite the distractions of urban life, the school had to similarly guide the students to focus on their studies. Finally, just as Ghana had to provide a conducive environment for citizens to thrive without losing sight of its national goals, the school needed to create an atmosphere that nurtures students' academic excellence while fostering a sense of collective identity. This session, therefore, remembers WASS by compiling the creative strategies that the co-founders and their stakeholders employed to realize the school's vision. The first symbolic element to remember is the school's name. The co-founders named the institution West Africa College to emphasize transnational vision of building Africa and its diaspora. This mirrors Ghana's own adoption of the name Ghana to evoke the greatness of the ancient Ghana Empire and inspire pride in the African race. Both colonialism and nationalism involve complex forms of marginalization. But to build WASS and post-colonial Ghana, marginalization had to be overcome to avoid self-destruction. The question, why must I love someone who is not like me, expresses the moral foundation of unity. The school's naming, together with the boarding system, nurtures students to see themselves as part of a broader African identity. WASS attracted students not only from early families in Adabraka, but also from across West Africa. It drew teachers from countries such as England and South Africa, and became a space where diverse African identities were socialized into a shared ethos. As a space for uniting diverse African identities, the school became home to prominent nationalist figures, including Ne Kwabena Boni III, Boycott Hene, H.K. Mould, editor of the African Morning Post, Mrs. Akunje, wife of the famous Akunje and headmistress of Christianburg Presbyterian Girls' School, Reverend A.S. Mallet, the first Church of Pentecost pastor to the Volta region, Reverend P.K. Dagadu, secretary of the Christian Council. These individuals served on the school's board of governors in the early 1950s. The historical value of the name endured. In the 1960s, when the school was preparing to relocate to Adenta, some people suggested that the name should be changed from West Africa Secondary School to Adenta Secondary School. But the proposal was rejected because the historic identity West Africa carried deep symbolic meaning. And we are very proud of that. So it was good we didn't change it. The motto of WASS is faith, industry, and wisdom. Moving from the name to the motto, the co-founders adopted faith, industry, and wisdom to drive students towards a multidimensional pursuit of excellence. The motto encapsulates a holistic human development agenda, faith in God to overcome obstacles, industry grounded in disciplined hard work, and wisdom to guide, conduct, judgment, and service. We also had the student and teacher pledges as performative ethics. To secure commitment to these values, the school institutionalized pledges recited by students and mirrored by teachers. These pledges were more than ceremonial words. They functioned as performative utterances that tethered behavior, expectations, and accountability to the school's moral vision and national mission. And I'll go over them. The students' pledge. I sincerely promise to obey the regulations of my school, West Africa Secondary School, to respect the head, the masters, and all the workers therein. I also promise to conduct myself well in school, in public, and at home. I shall endeavor to pass out of school a good product and therefore a useful citizen to the nation. God be my helper. And the teachers also had a pledge. And the teachers' pledge was, we, the teachers of West Africa Secondary School, pledge that we will be true to our mission to bring out the best in our students. We will be exemplary in the discharge of our duties and responsibilities. We will guide our students to be good and useful citizens of Ghana. We will continue to learn and pass on the love of learning to our students. We will win the trust, support, and cooperation of parents and the community to enable us achieve our mission. The pledge was performative utterance that helped cater both students and teachers to the school's values and to the broader mission of nation building. Through this, the co-founders and their stakeholders were able to gauge and respond to unpredictable challenges that arose. It also bound the school community to a Pan-African and nationalist vision, whilst respecting their respective cultures. Given that humans are prone to forgetfulness, the pledge served as a constant reminder for students and teachers to remain faithful in the pursuit of excellence. Beyond the pledge, the school also had to align itself with the aspirations of the Ghana people, who had graciously hosted it. In 1968, the school adopted a concurrent appellation. The appellation follows the traditional call and response pattern of several Ghanaian cultures, fostering a sense of social conviviality. When two alumni of WASS meet, one migrates with Botri, Botri, Botri. Good. This appellation is a contraction of the traditional Ghana greeting, which begins with Botri, the Ghana word for anthill, and is followed by Ashibente, Mimashi Tani, Kanya Ba. I hope I've done well. And His Excellence, the Ghana Manche will forgive me for my crooked Ghana. The metaphor likens the anthill Botri to a strong foundation, with the Kenya plant growing on top, symbolizing growth and success derived from the solid base provided by the anthill. This symbolic relationship is seen as a metaphor for the way WASS students, enabling them to reach new heights while remaining rooted in the principles of Pan-Africanism and national development. Non-discipline, community, and fenceless school. Discipline was a cornerstone of the school's ethos. Teachers and students who violated rules faced appropriate consequences. Their discipline at WASS was not simply punitive, it was formative. The school's proximity to surrounding community life demanded restraint, self-regulation, and social intelligence. These were not optional skills. They were essential competencies for success in the classroom and in the public sphere. This is why WASS fenceless character can be read as a pedagogical advantage. Living near community life where it required students to negotiate difference, resist distraction, and build respectful relationships. The same virtues are required of citizens in a democratic and plural society. Mr. Chairman, His Royal Majesty, esteemed students, ladies and gentlemen, it is within this rich historical context and symbolic framework that WASS has produced and continues to produce illustrious alumni. These alumni span medicine, public service, journalism, academia, politics, sports, entertainment, and faith communities, demonstrating the school's broad formative influence. Among the notable alumni highlighted in our collective memory are leading medical practitioners, such as Dr. Sam Kote, Dr. Akafo, Dr. Emmanuel Lachon, renowned journalists, including Alhaji Razak El Alawa, and Ni Adukwe Mofat, public servants and politicians, including Dr. Mustafa Ahmed, dentist and long-serving MP for Ayawaso East, athletes such as Ben Sogro, Wama Nigeria, and Mars Mills, and distinguished academic and legal minds such as Professor Clement Suma, myself, Professor Ransford Jampo, Dr. David Akon Odoe, and Professor Gideon Gogovi, and legal luminary Professor Kwame Frimpong. In the creative and entertainment industries, WASS has produced talents, including Sloppy Mike Jamfi, Berima Sydney of Nananum fame, Victoria Zuka, actress, and Ananama Ajewa, Ghana's most beautiful in 2010. The school has also produced eminent religious figures who have strengthened the spiritual and moral fabric of Ghana. Now look at secondary education in Ghana, past, present, and future. Secondary education occupies a pivotal position in Ghana's national development agenda. It serves as the bridge between the basic education and tertiary education, or entry into the labor market, shaping human capital, leadership capacity, social mobility, and civic competence. Since independence, successive governments have regarded education as a central instrument for nation building, economic transformation, and social equity. Before the Western-style schooling, education in pre-colonial Ghana took place through indigenous systems such as apprenticeship, initiation rites, palace education, and religious instruction, including Quranic schools in parts of northern Ghana. Emphasized moral formation, vocational skills, and social responsibility, though they did not constitute a distinct secondary level in the modern sense. Formal secondary education emerged during the colonial period largely through Christian missionary activity and colonial administration. Its initial purpose was utilitarian: to train clerks, interpreters, teachers, and catechists to support the colonial economy and missionary enterprise. Over time, early secondary institutions emerged, modeled on the British grammar school tradition and oriented toward academic rigor and leadership formation. Elite institutions, expansion and structural reforms. The establishment of infancy school in 1876 is often cited as a defining milestone in Ghana's secondary education. The model expanded with institutions such as Achimota College in the 1920s, which sought to combine academic excellence, character formation, and practical skills for African leadership. By the mid-20th century, a network of mission and state-supported secondary schools, including Wesley Girls, St. Augustine's, and Prempeh College, had emerged. These schools produced many national leaders, though access remained selective and often skewed by geographical class and gender. After independence in 1957, Ghana pursued expansion through reforms such as the Accelerated Development Plan of Education in 1951 and the Education Act of 1961, which laid foundations for mass education and broader post-primary opportunities. Economic constraints and concerns about relevance led to the landmark 1987 reform, restructuring pre-tertiary education into a 9-year basic cycle followed by a 3-year senior secondary school, introducing technical and vocational options and shaping the framework that largely persists today. Today, secondary education in Ghana is predominantly delivered through a 3-year senior high school program following a junior high school with admission based on the BECE. Students pursue programs in general arts, general science, business, technical vocation, or visual arts, culminating in the West African Senior Certificates, the WASS. Over the past 2 decades, Ghana has made notable progress in expanding access. Enrollment has increased with improved basic completion and policy interventions designed to reduce financial barriers. Yet participation remains uneven. Students from rural areas, poor households, and educationally deprived regions often face lower transition and completion rates. The free senior high school policy in 2017 exclusion with modest improvements in gender parity. At the same time, rapid expansion has placed pressure on infrastructure, staffing, and public finances. The double-track system introduced to raise concerns about congestion, instructional time, and learning quality. expand access. Although curriculum revision, secondary education remains heavily examination-driven and academically oriented. Many critics argue that this reflects lingering colonial influences and insufficient emphasis on creativity, practical skills, and local relevance. Recent reforms aim to strengthen STEM education, technical and vocational pathways, civic education, and cultural studies, though implementation challenges persist. Future directions. Looking ahead, Ghana's youthful demographics will continue to increase demand for secondary education. Meeting this demand requires sustained investment in infrastructure, stronger support for well-resourced day schools, and targeted mechanisms for the poorest households. Future reforms must deepen equity and inclusion, especially for girls, students with disabilities, and learners from marginalized communities, through bursaries, improved guidance and counseling, and stronger community engagement. Quality improvement remains the foremost challenge in an expanded system. Priority areas include teacher preparation and professional development, stronger supervision and accountability, and competency-based curricula emphasizing critical thinking, problem solving, digital literacy, and employability. Digital technology and emerging applications of artificial intelligence offer opportunities to enhancing teaching, learning, and assessment, particularly in the underserved areas. But effective integration depends on infrastructure, teacher capacity, and equitable access. Sustainable progress also requires sound governance, efficient resource use, and innovative financing. Partnership with faith-based organizations, private providers, communities, and development partners can complement public provision, provided equity and quality standards are protected. Lessons for contemporary Ghana. Mr. Chairman, if there's one enduring lesson from WASS at 80, it is that nation building is fundamentally a moral project. Policies, infrastructure, and technology matter, but they do not substitute for values. The values we remember today, respect, honesty, diligence, hard work, and the fear of God, are the quiet foundations of enduring national development. WASS' story is intertwined with the story of Accra, of Ghana, and of the Pan-African socialist dream that positioned Ghana as a leader in an envisioned African Union. It tells how educated citizens can become the bridge between plural identities and a shared national project. How schools can serve as the laboratories for learning to live with difference without dissolving into hostility. The central question returns: why should I love someone who is not like me? If we answer that question only with summary, the history of secondary school is not only about a school, it is also about visions of the future held by a cohort of colonial subjects living in a city in Anglophone West Africa, Accra, a sprawling urban center teeming with people from diverse ethnic backgrounds within Ghana, across Africa, and within the Atlantic world. The founding of WASS by West Africa eulogizes visionaries who laid a foundation, even as it exposes the challenges and sacrifices involved in building a community-driven institution in the 20th century. It also reminds us that the making of Ghana is inseparable from the making of institutions that socialize citizens into shared values and national purpose. Consequently, WASS embodies values essential to building Ghana as a post-colonial nation: unity, resilience, commitment to self-determination. As we celebrate 80 years, may WASS continue to inspire future generations to pursue excellence with faith, industry, and wisdom, so that we may build a Ghana that is strong enough to hold diversity together and wise enough to turn pluralism into progress. Thank you.
Please, can we give a big round of applause? Professor Soma, thank you so much. That was some rich history, wasn't it? So when he was speaking, I was just making a few notes, and one of the things that struck me was that, okay, so there were suggestions to name the school Adenta Senior High School, right? And I'm just Adenta Secondary School. So if it was Adenta Secondary School, if you had abbreviated it, it would have been ADS. Or Adenta Secondary School. Yes, ADS. And so just compare ADS to ASS. Oh. Adenta Secondary School. So ASS. His Royal Majesty is here, so I'll keep you decent. So imagine if you were going to pronounce ASS. Please, nobody should pronounce ASS. So we chose a good name, WASS, West Africa Secondary School. A big round of applause again for WASS. And like Professor Soma said, we produce and continue to produce illustrious men and women. And I was really struck by the number of names he mentioned. These are people I've heard on radio, on television, I've seen on television, and didn't know they passed through WASS. So thank you so much, Professor Soma, for letting us know that. And I believe that Professor Soma has set the tone for the launch of the book, which will be happening in a few minutes. But before that, I'd like to bring on stage the man who spent 3 years, he told me before we came here, writing this book. He prefers not to be called doctor, but I will insist I call him doctor. Dr. Charles Prempeh put together this beautiful book. Well, he didn't do that alone. And you completed in 2001. I completed in 2002. So it was just last week I found out that he was my senior by just 1 year. So it's great to see you again. So he's an alumnus of WASS. He completed in 2001. He's a research fellow at the Center for Cultural and African Studies, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. He holds a PhD from the University of Cambridge in the UK and an MPhil, yes, and an MPhil in African Studies from the Institute of African Studies at the University of Ghana, Legon, where he received an award for academic excellence in 2010. He earned his undergraduate degree in African Studies from the University of Cape Coast, becoming the first student in his field to graduate with first-class honors. And I can see you smiling there. And as an interdisciplinary scholar, Dr. Prempeh has authored over 50 books. So this first, over 50 books. 50 publications rather, including 4 books which are used in leading universities around the world. He's the author of The History of WASS, which will be soon launched, which I just mentioned to you earlier. So help me welcome on stage Dr. Prempeh.
Okay, so I'm grateful. I want to also say that last year I was a business associate professor in Japan, that is Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. So I already have the associate professor title. All right, 27 years ago, I was admitted at WASS. And I thank God today I stand here to give a testimony of what guest, a student. 7 years ago, I was admitted to West African Secondary School. My ambition at the time was to study agric science. The reason was simple. I didn't understand I certainly not secondary school to draw. Based on my BEC results, the then assistant headmaster, Mr. Gilbert, I could not pursue the course I preferred, I would that school. Eventually, I was offered business. That I gladly accepted. After all, man from Mamobi, I thought I knew something about business and money better. But my admission was only the beginning of a long walk into the corridors of academic life. My late father, who died almost 16 years ago, had to find money to pay my admission fee. His workplace was at the Kaneshi First traffic light, directly opposite Accra Academy Secondary School. He had no money. His employer initially had promised to support my education, provided I did well in my secondary school education. Unfortunately, at the time I was to go to school, he wasn't around, he had traveled. My father, determined as always, sought help elsewhere. Meanwhile, in our rush to return to the school to pay my school fees or my tuition fee, we did not count the money carefully. When we arrived, we realized that we had run short of the money that was expected. We had to rush back to Kaneshi for the rest. By the time we returned, my father climbed the old administrative block. He was so exhausted and he felt gravely ill and could barely move. I stood there helplessly, watching the man who carried my dreams struggle under their weight. By God's grace, he recovered. The fees were paid. Today, as I launch or we launch this book, I cannot help but wish he were here in a moment. While we waited for near the teacher's common room, I overheard my history teacher, Mr. Benson Ofori. He's here. Mr. Ofori, yes, he's still ready. So I overheard him announcing to his colleagues that he was going to teach. Something stirred within me. I had loved history in my junior secondary school days. So I immediately told the assistant master that I wanted to study history. Then he replied, "That is part of general arts." I responded, "Then I will do it." That was how my journey in general arts began. Before I completed in 2001, Mr. Dupo had then become the headmaster. And then he wrote on my terminal report, quote, "Charles Prempe is a promising student of West Africa Secondary School," unquote. Those words has forever stayed with me. Now, why I wrote this book. In 2018, during the National Science and Maths Quiz Grand Final, an article titled "Underdog School Targets First SMQ Trophy" caught national attention. West African Secondary School stood on the stage with St. Peter's and Prempeh College. For decades, the NSMQ had largely been dominated by a handful of traditionally celebrated institutions. Suddenly, WASS was there. WASS placed second, missing the trophy by just 1 point. Good enough, one of those who presented is here. Can we see you, Hamid? Indeed, the nation noticed, but so did we. The label, quote, "underdog," did not sit well with many old and current students, and rightly so. Matters became more even complex when, perhaps out of exuberance, a student of WASS referred to the school as the Adenta Legon. Social media erupted marginality through careless language. But beneath the noise was something deeper: ignorance. What those of us from Mamobi Zongo call Jahilinchi. It became evident that many, both within and outside the community of WASS, knew very little about the school's history. And this was not unique to WASS. Ghana suffers from a broader deficit in the comprehensive documentation of secondary school education. The question then became unavoidable. Why should anyone care about the history of West Africa Secondary School, especially a school that has been subjected to media prejudice and caricaturization? The answer emerged when I visited the Public Records and Archives Administrative Department, PRAD, and began interviewing all students beginning from the early 1960s. Actually, I started interviewing from 1965. After 3 years of archival and ethnographic research, what I discovered changed my own understanding of the school entirely. I encountered a school that is deeply interwoven with diverse nationalist, Pan-African, political and religious histories, hence its historic name, West Africa College. I encountered connections to figures such as Nico Naboni, Esther Nkulenu. These were pioneers of nationalism, entrepreneurship, and African vision. WASS was by the absence of narration. The attempt to narrate was post-World War II nationalist trajectories of Ghana and West Africa. Now, let me state what this book is not and what it is. First, although Wasosa encouraged this project, the interpretations remains my responsibility. It is necessarily subjective, precisely because all history is. Second, this is not the history of WASS. It is a social history of WASS. Third, as an African studies scholar with an interdisciplinary background in the humanities, I see life as a composite. To understand a part, we must consider the whole. Thus, this book is an amalgamation of history, philosophy, politics, sociology, anthropology, theology, and popular. At its core lies a philosophical question. What order for what is? In approaching WASS as a social history, I move beyond celebrating those on the fringes and carries responsibility. Narrating student popular culture or unpopular episode is not an endorsement of them. It is an attempt to understand life in its fullness. This epistemological map rejects parochialism. It takes seriously the prophetic exhortation attributed to Muhammad, peace be upon him. Quote, seek knowledge, even if it means be in China. This is a metaphor that invites humility, the willingness to learn across boundaries within surrounding conviction. In terms of historiographical perspective, I write as an Augustinian and a Calvinist with an understanding of history as providential. I believe history unfolds within the sovereignty of God. Nothing is random, even coincidence participate in shaping destinies. But this belief must not produce arrogance or exclusionary scholarship. It should produce humility, demonstrable in my engagement with philosophical insight from other faith traditions, including Islam, ancestral sagacity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and you find all this in the book. At the core of this book is therefore my conviction that history should not make us self-righteous. It should make us compassionate. It should help us to remove the plank from our own eyes before examining the specks in another's. In light of the contemporary debate about statues and naming of places, whether concerning Kotoka or Nkrumah, history should compel us to ask the question, whom do we honor? A saint? None qualifies. A decisively evil? None would support that. Or a human being who lived wisely, though not flawlessly. In my humble view, therefore, this last category should guide us as a nation, helping us avoid both romanticism and erasure in historical writing. Indeed, I preempted this in the work. So in my historiographical chapter, I talked about what is happening today. In other words, history should teach us that compassion is always stronger than condemnation. By my final reflection, this book is not merely about buildings, dates, or headmasters, nor even the activities of students. It is about the lives that people lived, their social reality, their beliefs, and the norms and the values that shaped them, and contributing significantly to shaping the contours and boundaries of Ghana's development. If knowledge shapes life, then history shapes the future. My hope is that this book will encourage reinvestment in nation building. It will inspire new research, motivate others to document their own schools and communities, and remind us that no institution is an accident of history. Knowledge, like the baobab tree, cannot be embraced by one person alone. We need one another. We need epistemic conviviality. And perhaps most importantly, as I said, we need humility. To the students here in Gathered, I began as a young boy who did not want to study general arts. Today, I stand before you as a product of general arts, having acquired my terminal degree from the University of Cambridge to launch this book. History has a sense of irony, but be inspired that more than an irony, it is, as I said, equally providential. Thank you very much, and I hope that this book will inspire us. But I want to take an opportunity to honor my senior, Mr. Harold Evans. Mr. Harold Evans, his father actually was the one who designed the crest in 1968 when he temporarily stepped in while Mr. Chico announced it. Thank you very much. So he recovered the anthem for us. And I want to thank Mr. Wiley and Auntie Stella. As of December 24th December to 27th December, we're still working on this book. Auntie Stella will feed me. I'll go there from 8 and leave midnight. I'm very grateful. I'm very sure in a vote of thanks, they all do that. And then my father, Professor Kopna in Crown Parry, he has been a strong encourager. As I said, I lost my dad 16 years ago. He stood by me. Anytime I run into crisis, I go to him for guidance. I'm very grateful. And to all of you, thanks for coming. God bless.
Dr. Hunter, thank you. And let's appreciate him again. And I'm sure if your father were alive, he'd be so proud of you. And we're all proud of you anyway. So he said a few things. History should not make us self-righteous. It should make us compassionate. And the book is about the life that people lived, right? And that he hopes that this book encourages new investment in nation building. I think the final, his concluding remarks, what he said he grew up as a young man who didn't want to study general arts. But here you are today talking to us about the history of a school we so much love. And I'm sure that this has sent a strong message, it's a word of encouragement to the student at WASS currently, right? Thank you. So a big round of applause for him. So Dr. Prempe couldn't have put this book together if he didn't get any additional help. So at this point, I'd like to invite on stage two individuals. The first one is the publisher, Mr. Willie Dekuche. And then the next one will be two reviewers, Professor Kwabna O. Okuran Parry and Dr. Mrs. Shine Agatha Ufuri. Now, the first one to mount the stage, talk to us about what went into the publishing briefly, will be Dr. Mr. Willie Achu Dekuche. He's a 1968 alumnus of WASS, a pioneering Ghanaian publisher, writer, and founder of Willie Publishing Services, trained at Oxford Brookes University. He's among Ghana's first professionally educated publishers. Now, a prolific author and former president of Ghana Association of Book Editors, he has shaped the country's publishing and literary landscape. Please help me welcome on stage Willie. And as Mr. Willie comes, if the chairman would allow me, respectfully. So the man, Mr. Friends, the history teacher, Mr. Ofori, is my father.
Me, Chairman, Gamanche, honorable guests, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen. I stand before you as part of the launching today. It was written by Professor Charles Prempe, an old boy, printed and bound by a printer who is also an old boy, and published once again by an old boy. So you see, everything under our belt. But the going has not been easy. It has been hectic. But thank God we've made it. And now it's all smiles. The book we are launching today is what I call a tome. It is voluminous, about 400 pages, well documented and indexed. My favorite chapter is chapter 9, the penultimate chapter. Chapter 9 is full of personal anecdotes. You will laugh, you will cry, and it's all hilarity. I will advise the audience not to leave this hall without buying a copy of the book. Therefore, make sure you buy a copy for your home library. I thank you all for coming. God bless you all. Thank you.
And the next person, sorry for that, I had to address something. I had to speak to the government chair, His Royal Majesty. The next person to mount the stage, one of the reviewers, Dr. Okuran Parry. Please, a big round of applause as he comes up here on stage. And let me give you a brief profile of Professor Kwabena Okuran Parry. He holds a PhD degree in African history and comparative slavery and abolition from York University, Toronto, Canada. He is a distinguished professor of African history, African heritage, and world history at the Department of History Education, University of Education, Winneba. He has taught in several universities in North America and in Ghana. Now, with over 100 scholarly articles in peer-reviewed journals and edited volumes as well as 6 books to his credit, he was described by the late emeritus Professor J.H. Kwabena Nketia as a scholar writer. Now, apart from 7 pioneering contributions to African history, Professor Okuran Parry is better known for his electric focus on colonial rule, slavery, and abolition in Africa, and best known globally as the first historian to debunk Eurocentric orthodoxy of the sole European agency in the superseded and overshadowed European agency in the abolition of domestic slavery in Africa. And I understand why you chose him to be one of your reviewers. So help me welcome Professor Kwabena Okuran Parry.
Good afternoon to all. All protocols, I stand on all protocols, and a historical and philosophical study of West Africa Secondary School, Ghana, 1800 to 2023. Sorry, I have a cold, so you have to pardon my voice breaks. This book is resiliently packaged and deals with several what comes from the book. It is different from any book that has been on any history of education in Ghana. Histories of secondary education, exemplified by the prototype of Borges. Indeed, what confronted me in Prempe's book was applications of heritage, religion, philosophy, all share his, those of us share his that is history of those who have, apart from conventional historical methods, Dr. Prempe diligently employed prosopography, effect, and chronology. Indeed, the stakeholders of WASS should be proud to call it a Prempian methodology because it's because of its application of multiple disciplinary fields in the writing of the. And I'm very happy to say that Dr. Prempeh has offered a motivating challenge to historians of but of the one edited entitled Preface and Introduction, impeccable tribute to the founders of what evolved eventually as West Africa Secondary School, or WASS, established on January 20th, 1946. The founders were Reverend J.C. Tete and Mr. Emmanuel Addo. Painstakingly, Dr. Prempeh traces the unassuming backgrounds of Reverend Tete and Mr. Addo. It is a mesmerizing validation of the view that life has infinite options and opportunities. In short, Reverend Tete and Mr. Addo were able to establish WASS just privileged agents of the established churches founded in the Gold Coast by the Christian missionaries. And this makes the achievement of Reverend Tete and Mr. Addo all the more significant. Prempeh makes clear that in spite of the turbulent phases of WASS during the years between decolonization and its immediate aftermath, both founders to the end stayed the course of the advancement of WASS. Overall, both men remained with pious honor and dignity to the mortal finish to hand their baton of achievement to their maker. Chapter 1, captioned The Philosophy of History, using Jungian synchronicity and Derrida's deconstruction. For instance, Prempeh debunks the popular complicity in deprivileging schools like WASS through systemic cultivation of depressing their progress over time. He makes clear that popular stories of poor performances imputed to WASS were just false validity and myth-making and nothing else. That if history of the planting of Christianity and its spread of education in the Gold Coast in the 19th century is the conjoined subject matters of chapters 2 and 3. Both retread the spread of Christianity and, more significantly, the ways that the Christians had inviting climate for immigrants. It is the need for spatial integrity or space and structural needs that occurred from the 1940s forward. In all, Prempeh concludes that in spite of the many challenges and nascent prospects that was faced, eventually all of them bore fruit to the delight of all. For its part, Chapter 8 showcases how WASS participated in acculturative processes brought about by the post-Second World War popular culture, defined not only by globalization, but also by local antecedents. Popular culture contributed to the understanding of the world of the classroom and the ones beyond it. Popular culture became a pedagogic lens that made students of WASS associate with the world beyond the classroom and the home. In many ways, popular culture served as a freeing agency from segregated provincialism to cosmopolitanism. In Chapter 9, Prempeh draws resplendent portraits of some exemplary graduates of WASS whose stellar contributions to Ghana and the world are immortalized. And I think we have heard quite a number of former students of WASS who have gone on to great achievements. Chapter 10, the final chapter, titled Concluding Thought, uses the history of WASS as an epistemological site to appraise the gains of education worldwide. Prempeh takes stock of technological changes, its impact on education, and the rallying calls for STEM education to the detriment of the humanities, broadly defined. Now, what I could say about the book, I would say brilliant, pioneering, engaging, readable, and so on and so forth. But I wish the voices of the present generation had been found throughout the book. But I mean, I'm a historian, and we know what historians normally do is that we don't take all the fufu or bankun. We leave some for others to pursue. In other words, we leave some gaps in the literature for future historians or other historians to fill in the gaps. And I hope that some of you here would be able to do that in the future, continue from where Dr. Prempeh has left off, and then fill the void in that regard. Writing the foreword is not a marketing ploy like a blurb on a book jacket. A blurb is the information that we normally find at the back of the book cover. Nevertheless, allow me this on-end lenses to say that this is a must-read book. It is not only about the history of WASS, it is about human ingenuity and innovation. And I believe the previous speakers have made mention of that. It is also about the inexorable can-do attitude that Africans need to embrace, just like how Reverend J.C. Tete and Mr. Emmanuel Addo, the two founders of WASS, annexed integrity, commitment, and hard work to achieve the ends they sought. Thanks to Dr. Charles Prempeh for unlocking the galaxies of WASS. All can now clench fist the air in celebration of WASS. Thank you, Dr. Prempeh, for your work, and thank you, everyone who is here. And I hope that all of us will leave here with a copy of the book. And then those who would not get copies would have their names written down for, to receive them later, because it is a great book by all accounts. It is not your ordinary history book. It is a book filled with philosophy, sociology, political science, and all those other disciplines that you can think about. Thank you.
Dr. Grampari, thank you so much for that detailed review. Thank you so much for that detailed review. Our next reviewer, before we do the official book launch, will be Dr. Mrs. Shaina Furi. She's the immediate past headmistress of WASS. She's an accomplished educationist and Christian counselor. She began her education at Jelikope Evangelical Presbyterian Primary and Middle School in Keta before attending Keta Secondary School, that's Keta School, where she earned her GC O-level and A-level in 1981 and 1983 respectively. She completed her first national service at Keta School in 1983-84. In 84, she entered the University of Cape Coast, graduating in 1988 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and French and Diploma in Education. She later obtained a Master of Education in Educational Administration from UCC in 2005. Her professional training includes exposure to school mental health through the Ghana Health Service. Between 2005 and 2011, she pursued doctoral studies at Trinity Theological Seminary and Newberg Theological Seminary, USA, earning a PhD in Biblical Christian Counseling. Now, her career spans extensive classroom teaching and educational leadership. She has taught in 7 senior high schools across southern Ghana, including St. Augustine's College, Bishop Herman College, Accra Academy. These are just a few. She has also served as headmistress in 5 schools, including our very own West Africa Secondary School. now bringing her total service to 12 educational institutions. Dr. Mrs. Shinofori is a resilient educator, faith-based leader, and prolific writer. Help me welcome the beautiful immediate past headmistress of WASS, Dr. Mrs. Shinofori.
Thank you very much. Chair, His Royal Majesty, please allow me to stand on the already established protocols. Good afternoon. I'm honored to be part of this great and historic event, the twin launch of the WASS 80th anniversary and history book. I'm also grateful for the opportunity to do this book review. But here, Professor Charles Prempeh, his book, Making of Ghana, A History of West Africa Secondary School, 1946 to 2026, is no ordinary book. It is a tapestry woven with history, geography, culture, religion, and education. Reading Prempeh is not a straight road. It is a journey of discovery. It is like piecing together a jigsaw. At first, it is uncertain, but it is an ultimately revealing masterpiece. You must commit to it, and you will be richly rewarded. In this book, you get to know the origin of WASS, who we are, what we do, what we value, and in fact, our essence in and to society. Prempeh's style. I have interacted with Prempeh and reviewed his earlier works. At first glance, his volumes may seem heavy, highly philosophical, technically endowed, even intimidating. But look closer, look closer. Inside are vivid stories, anecdotes that excite, and lessons that educate. His style demands attentiveness, but it pays with insight and inspiration. At some points, it is entertaining. You know, bringing in classroom situations when a teacher would be there and students would give nicknames to the teacher. You can laugh. You laugh and laugh and laugh off. So while you hear about metaphysical world, you also hear about students naming their teachers. Themes and content. The book opens wide. It speaks of the essence of life, religion and society, teacher-student relations, governance, politics, and culture. It draws from archives, artifacts, and oral testimonies. Founders' families share their stories. Past students recall their detail. Current staff and add their voices. Prempeh blends philosophy with lived experience, making the book both profound and narrative. Prempeh philosophizes boldly. He insists that education is critical for human development. He blends lofty ideas with everyday realities. He uses oral tradition, first-hand voices, and even model tools like social media and AI. School crests, anthems, language, and colors all receive careful attention. The spirit of WASS runs through every page. The spirit of WASS. Prempe reminds us that schools are not isolated institutions. They are born of people, places, and times. He shows how WASS was shaped by its founders, Reverend Joseph Charlton Tete and Mr. Emmanuel Ado, ordinary men from Piki, moved by questions of faith and human need. They sacrificed, even surrendering the school that they used their family resources to build to government, because they believed education could reshape society. That sacrifice gave birth to the spirit of WASS. The key elements of the spirit of WASS: pride and belonging. Alumni and students that have long regarded WASS as a school for the whole of West Africa, carrying deep loyalty and pride in its heritage. Faith, industry, wisdom. The school's motto reflects its guiding principles: spiritual grounding, hard work, and knowledge. Transformation through education. WASS has consistently been more than a school. It is a social project that transforms individuals, families, and communities. Cultural conviviality. Over the years, WASS has fostered tolerance, unity, and camaraderie among diverse students, creating a vibrant school culture. Thus, the spirit of WASS is pride, wisdom, and resilience, alive in every scholar, binding generations together in faith, industry, and wisdom, and also in conviviality and transformation. Conclusion. Through Prempe's eyes, WASS is more than a name. It is a living institution, a societal project that has transformed individuals, families, communities, and nations. This book is informative, educative, and full of discovery. It is a journey worth taking. It is a testimony to the enduring spirit of West Africa Secondary School. Ladies and gentlemen, I proudly recommend this book to individuals, families, libraries, bookshops, and academic institutions. Buy a copy, share a copy, make it a gift to the world. Thank you.
Dr. Mrs. Shine Ofori and Dr. Akuran Parry, thank you so much for those beautiful reviews. We appreciate that. And once again, Dr. Charles Prempe, we appreciate you for putting this beautiful book together. We've gone into one of the major highlights of the program. That's the formal launch, the speech and formal launch anniversary and book by our special guest of honor, His Royal Majesty, Kintaki Tekwichuru II, the Gamanche. But before we do that, we would like to take a short poetry performance from a Form 1 science student at West Africa Senior High School, Justin Ofori. Justin, if you're here, is Justin here? Right after that, we'll take a speech from the Chief of Staff at the Gamanche Palace, and then we'll do the unveiling.
Greetings, the Gammon Chair, Nime, Name, noble students of the West Africa Senior High School, noble law students of the West Africa Senior High School, I mean the Wasusas. So, I made this masterpiece, 80 seasons of faith, industry, and wisdom. 80 seasons ago, when time still wore the sandals of hope, they planted a thought. Reverend J.C. Tete and Mr. Emmanuel Ado in the red patience of the soil, not of bricks alone, but a covenant for tomorrow. This ground learned our names before we learned ourselves. It swallowed sweet chalk and silent prayers. Head bells cry like metal birds at dawn. And you watch the young mind she wrestled darkness with nothing but ink, faith, and hard work. Here, history did not whisper. This noble institution was founded in 1946. History thundered in classrooms, and colonial shadows leaned against the walls. While syllables sharpened into spears, and education became rebellion, stress as discipline, we are taught that ignorance is a longer night than poverty, that a question is a matchstick in the mind, a continent yet to be mapped. 80 years of this, scarred by ambition, of head teachers whose selflessness shaped us, of teachers whose voices outlive their bodies, of books opened like wounds and healed with prayers. This is not just a school, it is a drumbeat passed through generation, a river carrying names, from trembling beginners to giants who now shape nations. We are taught that we should make our core values remember us vividly. Let the anthem remember us kindly. So, let us raise the flag like a promise renewed. We are the great Wazarians. Albeit we face challenges, the West Africa Senior High School teaches us to be winners, critical thinkers, problem solvers, and persevere to the end. For long after this anniversary fades, the West Africa Senior High School will remain the unbeatable. We are forever the great Wazarians. But we are. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I never got to say that Botchue when I was a student at WASS. So can I say it and then we... Botchue. What does that mean? Sorry, I had to ask for the explanation because my Ghana is not so good. Please, all the Ghana speakers, forgive me. So we get into the final stages of our program. We'll soon unveil the book, which I showed you earlier. What we'll do now is take a speech from the Gamanche, His Royal Majesty. But he will not be doing that. The Chief of Staff at the Gamanche Palace will be doing that on his behalf. Then after that, the Gamanche, His Royal Majesty, Nitete Chiru II, will help us unveil the book. Thank you so much once again, Your Royal Majesty. So to do the launch for us is Justice Julia Nayele Yale Eje Amwa, Chief of Staff, Office of the Gamanche. She's a distinguished Ghanaian judge, a legal practitioner, and consultant with extensive experience in criminal justice, e-justice systems, and social justice. She served as a judge of the High Court in Botswana and was later employed by the Commonwealth Secretariat as a justice specialist and a criminal justice expert in Sierra Leone and in the Bahamas. Please help me welcome the beautiful
staff at the Office of the Amwa.
Good afternoon. Okay, ago. You. I'm going to read this speech humbly, on behalf of His Royal Majesty, King Taki Teku II, Gamanche, the Ghana traditional and the overlord of the Ghana state. So I humbly will read this speech. His Royal Majesty says, Nyabake, which is the plural of Obake. It is you warmly before I read it. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, respected alumni, all other protocols of it is a real pleasure to stand before you as we launch the 80th anniversary of West Africa Secondary School. 80 years. Let me ask, how many old students are here today? You see, that is history working. Some of you are looking very youthful, though 80 years past. But seriously, 80 years is not small. It means this school has survived colonial rule, independence, military governments, democratic transitions, and generations of teenagers. And generations of teenagers. That deserves an applause. WASS has not merely existed, it has mastered. And that is why I speak about remembering, not just remembering, it's remembering. To remember, put the body back together. It is to take the pieces of our history, our discipline, our excellence, and bind them again with intention. Because if we forget who we are, we may not know where we are going. Gamanche, I see a tool that has wisdom and many things, and our ancestors understood something clearly. Education is civilization. Education turns noise into knowledge. It turns potential into purpose. It turns children into leaders. Students, you are here. Let me ask you, do you want to lead in the future? Then stay in class. I am very serious when I see students outside during school hours. It's better to be in class. Don't make him curious. But education is not only about passing exams. It is also about identity. A people who forget their history or their story lose their strength. That is why I have committed myself to compete with anyone. The Ga people, and indeed the Ga Dangbe people, have always been welcoming. Our philosophy says, Ablekuma Aba Kumawo. Meaning, when you come, you belong. Let me ask, how many of you here are not Ga, but you are here? You see, you are all comfortably welcome. Let it stay so. Sometimes too hospitable. That is why everybody wants land in Accra. And WASS reflects the spirit. WASS is in Accra. Ga leaders have invested vision in this school. Like Ni Kwabena Boni, the nationalist, He served on its governing board and helped fuel Ghana's nationalistic awakening. Leaders like J. Adesoya and T.Q. Ama laid influenced musical tradition that shaped our national anthem. So then, that is legacy, seriousness. The motto of the school says clearly, faith, industry, and wisdom. Let me break it down. Faith, so you do not panic when life tests you. Industry, so you do not become comfortable in laziness. Wisdom, so when success comes, it does not destroy you. Faith. Industry. Wisdom. So now go and live it. The past. Let us build the future. To the alumni, support your school. To the teachers, continue shaping destiny. To the students, prepare well. One day, you will stand here giving speeches. And please, when that day comes, make it shorter than mine. WASS is not just a school in Accra. It is part of our national history. And I say with pride, it is part of Ghana's story. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary, WASS. Long live West Africa Secondary School. Long live the Ghana people. Long.
Justice Naya Leje.
Meet Kwame. He's not just any Kwame. He's Kwame the TV license legend. Kwame knows that by paying his TV license, he's supporting GBC, our public service broadcaster, and he's making a real difference. Kwame's contribution helps bring our communities closer together. Because of Kwame and others like him, we will all have access to amazing TV programs, educational content, plus broadcasting infrastructures are maintained and our culture is beautifully promoted. So GBC is asking all to respond to this civic obligation and pay your TV license fee.
Up next,